I'm joined now by the Israeli ambassador to Britain, Tzipi Hotovely. Tzipi,
Hello, Andrew. Good
very
evening.
kind to have you. How kind to come into the studio. Those words sound pretty devastating. Are we at the end of Gaza as a place where many Palestinian people live full time?
Well, it can end today if Hamas leaders will release our hostages and will surrender after the horrific attack they committed on Israel, the most barbaric attack on Israel at the 7th of October. Everything will be over. So it sounds to me very strange that people keep on, attacking Israel when actually Hamas can end up this in a minute.
We never forget October the 7th, but we also suspect, or clearly Hamas think, that if they release the last of the hostages, Israel will just then kill them all, and just go after them all and slaughter everybody.
I think we don't use these terms. We are a democratic country, cares about human rights, cares about human life. I think for many years we avoided attacking Gaza because we said, live your life peacefully, build a heaven from tons of humanitarian support you received. And in the end of the day, they turned it into this hell. And let me just share with you something. Today was a very emotional day for many Israelis when they heard Eli Sharabi, a hostage that was released, coming to the UN on the most important platform in the world and basically saying those horrific things. He said, I was treated as if I was an animal. I had to beg for food. I had to beg to go to the bathroom. And then he said, I saw as an eyewitness that Hamas was looting all those boxes of humanitarian aid having UN and UNRWA logos. So we're talking here about Hamas that used the ceasefire actually to rearm and regroup to make sure that Israel would be under attack again. And Israel was under attack today, under rocket attack.
And as we sit here today, though, Tzipi, the war has restarted. The war goes on. It seems to be an endless war, and more than 400 people dead in the past 48 hours, most of them women and children. That cannot be right.
To begin with, it's a human tragedy that Hamas uses its own people as human shields. I think that it's clear for everyone that Israel never targets civilians, never. We are using all our best intelligence to make sure we're attacking the infrastructure of Hamas, we're attacking the commanders of Hamas, but they embedded themselves in their population intentionally to create these cynical images in the BBC, in ל-LBC, and everywhere, to make sure that the world will take Israel as the one who's targeting those people. We're not targeting the civilians, and we need to make it clear.
Well, can I put it gently? If you're not targeting the civilians, your targeting can't be very good, because you're killing an awful lot of them.
As you know, when you take your rates, when you're fighting, when you were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan together with your American allies, it was clear that you had proportionally one terror or armed person for 5 civilians. Israel did in the Gaza case 1 for 1, and I think this rate, this is the one that was researched both by our people and by very professional people like Professor Andrew Roberts. So I think it's very clear that Israel is doing what every democratic country in the world would have done.
Let us agree right now, it would be the right thing for Hamas to release all the hostages immediately.
I agree.
But if they don't, how does this end?
First of all, I think there is a responsibility here in the international community. According to the British government, the US administration is doing its best to put pressure on Hamas to release them now, not tomorrow, now. And I think that every day we're waiting, we'll lose more life. And every day matters. This is why this pressure is so significant. And you're asking me what if not?
Yeah.
Then unfortunately, we'll be in a point where Hamas understands military pressure, and we'll have to make sure Hamas won't control the Gaza Strip, which is the end game. You asked me about the end game.
In those circumstances, do we end up with a Gaza where there are simply no Palestinians left alive?
That was never the plan.
I'm not saying the plan, but is that where we end up?
When President Trump came with his very out-of-the-box creative idea, he was talking about giving the Palestinians for the first time in their life the opportunity to choose, but they can only choose if Hamas won't be, doing this horrific war crimes, not just for Israel, also for its own people. So I think it's better for everyone to understand a better future for the Palestinians in Gaza will be without Hamas.
Just to remind people that the Trump plan was a kind of Riviera I don't know what you'd call it really, but a kind of a strip with beaches and hotels and
cities to Riviera. Yes.
Do you like that idea? Is that a serious idea, do you think?
So I think everyone probably saw how people don't take it seriously. And I think you need to understand the heart of the idea. The heart of the idea is not the business idea. People take it whether it's going to be a Riviera or not. This is not the story. The story is basically looking at the reality in the Middle East. And I think we both can agree that the last generation, the last 25 years, were not good. They were not good for Israelis. They were not good to Palestinians. When Israel did the withdrawal in 2005, and we said we'll go back to the international borderline, and then we'll have peace and quiet. And we removed settlements, and we did all those things. In the end of the day, we got more radicalization in the other side. So I think the key word here is that this is what Trump is saying, let's change and build a new paradigm. And I think he's right.
Let's talk a bit about radicalization. Rabbi Meir Kahan, who was eventually assassinated, for a long time was a very extreme figure in Israeli politics. He was seen as somebody who thought Israel should take over Gaza, take over what we call the West Bank, full-time, forever. Are his politics now coming into the actual government? We've got Ben Gvir coming back into the government. He follows a lot of that ideology. Has that moved from the extremes to the centre of Israeli politics?
No, because I think what's happening in Israel, actually, it's not understanding Israeli politics, thinking that we're turning to some right-wing country. We're not turning to a right-wing country. We're turning to a country that wants safe life to our children. This is what we're turning to be. We understood that by having a terror organization on our doorstep, we didn't allow our children to have a safe haven, what Israel was supposed to be for the Jewish people, as our homeland. And we lost that at the 7th of October. We want to bring back security and the feeling of freedom to our children, not being under a threat of being kidnapped by a terror organization or being killed.
I hear all of that, but Ambassador, you know that Israeli politics are in turmoil tonight. There's been huge protests about the likely sacking of the head of Shin Bet, the security organization, Ronan Bar. Yes. The Attorney General has said that would be against the law. And in the demonstrations outside Israeli parliament, the former head of the IDF, Moshe Yalon, is there. This is not extremists protesting against the government. This is beginning to feel like Israeli society saying this is no longer a government we support.
Well, we are democracy that loves demonstrating. So I think we should be proud in the fact that everyone can express itself in Israel. Everyone can go to the streets and say what he thinks about the government. And in no world, I would say, those demonstrations shouldn't happen. They should happen. This is a democracy. I'm proud in our democracy. And I think more than that, we have elections too often, if you ask me, but it should be once in 4 years, but we normally do it once in 3 years. And we have the democratic process works once in few years, and people will be able to say what they think about the government when it comes to time to vote. And I think this is how democracies work.
Mr. Katz, I was citing him earlier on, the defense minister, Israel Katz, was saying that if the hostages are released and tension comes out of this, then people who are living at the moment inside Gaza, Palestinians, will be allowed to go somewhere else in the world. Does anyone know where that somewhere would be? Nobody seems to want them.
First of all, it's a serious problem. If people are fighting so many years to, say they're pro-Palestinians, and in the end of the day, they're not willing to accept that, I think there is a serious problem with how much they actually believe in the Palestinian cause. I mean, that's very challenging to the European thinking.
They don't necessarily want to be expelled either.
I think no one is talking about expelling them. We're talking about giving them the right that you have as a British citizen, that I have as an Israeli citizen, to choose where I want to live. And I don't think they've been given this choice. I think the terror organization was controlling the minds and the hearts of the people just for one thing, to become a terror machine against the Israelis and to do those horrific crimes. And I think this radicalization must stop, and no matter what will be the future in Gaza, and whoever wants to stay there to live peacefully with Israelis, I think education should be the key factor for any future plan, as I said before.
So you think that out of all of this, we could still see a Gaza with many, many Palestinians living there long term?
We have zero problem with the Palestinians. We have a problem with radicals that want to kill and, eliminate Israel. That's the problem, not identity, the national identity.
And this forever war, as things stand, goes on and on and on. You've got Israeli ground troops moving back into Gaza in large numbers too. We can expect to see headlines of more hundreds of people killed tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after.
I want to repeat my first sentence. It can end today if our hostages will be back and Hamas will surrender. And we're expecting that to happen. And we will not finish this war before Hamas won't control the Gaza Strip.
Ambassador,
and
thank you.
And our hostages will be back, of course.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in and talking to me.